Good morning, everybody. How are you? I hope all is well. I just wanted to give you some information for this new chapter, but before I do that, let me do this. Yes, so you can actually hear me. All right, perfect. I wanted to just send you over some information about this new chapter here that we're doing. A lot of you already sent me the work that you've done for the vocabulary portion. And so I just wanted to go through these slides really quick. For today's assignment, I'm going to send you over some questions a lot of what the questions will ask is covered in here, but it'll also give you an opportunity to gather any additional information that you may need to. All right, so let's just jump right to it. So in chapter 4, basically what we're going to talk about are the different types of businesses in terms of activities and then different types of business ownership. So this is going to be a two-part video. I'll just go through a few slides today, and then on Monday I'll send you over the second piece to this. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope this whole new experience is not too overwhelming for you. I know I certainly have to be doing a lot of adjustments in terms of trying to get stuff done with two little kids, running around all day, that I'm also homeschooling. So it's been a bit much. But anyhow, so let's just jump into it. So for types of businesses, there are basically two main types of businesses. And first we'll talk about producers. And producers can be categorized into two categories: extractors and manufacturers. So producers are any businesses that are creating any type of good or services. You think of an extractor as a business or people that are taking things from raw natural resources. And like you think of mining and excavating and so on. And a manufacturer is any business who are then using those raw materials to create final products. So businesses that use supplies from other producers to make products. All right, so that's the first type of business. You have producers, and then producers can be categorized into extractors and manufacturers. Extractors take natural resources from the land, and manufacturers then take those raw resources or natural resources and create final products. The next type of business are what we call intermediaries. An intermediary basically makes sure those goods and services get to the right consumers. So you think of any stores that we as consumers shop, your stores in the mall, your grocery store, those are considered your intermediaries. So I have some examples listed here: a new car dealership, wholesalers, your retailers, your grocery store, and so on. And those are intermediaries. So basically think of the intermediary as the pit stop between the producers and the final customers. And intermediaries can be categorized, if you really want to think of a category: wholesalers, who are any businesses that are purchasing in large quantities. So you figure, for example, a company such as Costco, they are considered a wholesaler. There's also another company called Restaurant Depot. A lot of people who own restaurants, they'll shop at Restaurant Depot because you get those commodities in really large quantities. Then you have just your retailers, which is where we shop as customers, from your local grocery stores and anywhere you can walk in as a customer and purchase single items are considered your retailers. And then let's not forget our service businesses. Service businesses are any type of business that you must experience whatever the service is that they're offering. They're not necessarily selling something that tangible, and you probably won't be able to hold it, touch it, feel it, but you have to experience it, whatever the service is. For example, and I have some photos here, a hair salon. You have to actually walk in. Yes, they're using products in your hair, but you have to actually be there to experience the service. A taxi service or Uber or a tax accounting firm like I have it here. Any kind of services that are helping you with things over the phone, customer service and so on and so forth. You have to experience it. However, let's not forget there are some companies that based on their product, they combine a product and a service. And one of the examples I think is most relevant is our cell phone. We have the service of being able to call and text and use the internet and so forth, but we also get the physical feature, which is the physical actual cell phone. So there are some companies that are involved in that. You think if you dine out in the same sense, yes, the dining experience, the dining out and getting help as you walk in and you're seated and so on, that's the service, that's the whole experience. The food then would be the actual product. You can touch it, you can feel it, you can taste it. All right, and that's pretty much it. Which then brings us to one of your vocab terms was the NAICS, which stands for North American Industry Classification System. And this is basically a numeric system used to classify businesses and place those businesses into different industries. And what they do is to collect economic statistics. The NAICS was created by the governments of the USA, Canada, and Mexico. As far as what year, I can't remember what year, but maybe somebody would have found it in when you were researching your vocab terms. And the purpose of doing this is really to be able to see what those growing industries are and be able to report statistics as far as what industries are doing well, what industries are not doing so well, and so on. Some examples of like industries, agriculture, you have like educational services, healthcare, finance, and insurance. So depending on what activity a particular business is involved in, they would be placed within a particular industry, and each industry has their own numeric codes. Maybe next week I'll take you to the website. We could look at some of those industries. And that is the NAICS, which then takes us to types of customers. So in the same way, we have different types of businesses, we have different types of customers. And a customer is basically any individual or group who are buying products and services from those businesses that we looked at earlier. So customers can be categorized into three types. You have business customers, let's call them business market, like I have it here, which consists of customers who buy products for their own. Nope, that's wrong. This should be customers who buy products to use in their business. And for consumer market, those consist of customers who buy products for their own use. So these two, and I'll change it after, these two should be flip-flopped. And last but not least, you have government and institution, which consists of products that the government or institutions buy for either the public or personal use. So the government obviously spends money on, for example, education, the military, on public services, and so on. So whatever they are purchasing, those are considered, the government does make purchases, and so they are also considered customers. So again, you have the business market, you have the consumer market, and then you have the government and institutions market. Which then brings us to forms of business ownership. And I'll go through just basically the four main types. There are some alternative options, and those will be covered in the video that I'll send you over next Monday. And then I will quickly run through some advantages and disadvantages of the first two, and then we'll save the others for next week because I don't want to make this too long. All right, so forms of business ownership, not to be confused with types of businesses. So again, Remember, when we discuss types of businesses, we are thinking of your wholesaler, your retailer, your service business, your manufacturer, right? And that has to do with the activity that the business is involved with or involved in. When you think of forms of business ownership, you are thinking of the legal structure of said business. All right, so activity versus legal structure, very different. So, types of businesses, very different from forms of business ownership. And the different forms or types of business ownership, one, you have a proprietorship. In some textbooks or in some mediums, you may see it written as sole proprietorship, which is the same thing. And all a sole proprietorship is a business that is owned and operated by one single person. And so it's a proprietorship. A partnership is another type of business. And a partnership is an association of two or more people who co-own a business with the objective of earning a profit. You also have a corporation, which is a business that is legally separate from its owners. And all that means is the people that own it, the business is considered a person, and so they're separate from the people that own it. In a lot of cases, your proprietorship and your partnership are not the same in terms of the owner and the business can be considered as one person. And I'll talk more about that in the next slide when we talk about liability. And then fourth that we'll talk about today is a limited liability company, which stands for, or which is usually abbreviated as LLC. A lot of times you'll see the name of a company and then in parentheses you'll see LLC. Well, that's what LLC stands for, a limited liability company. And a limited liability company is a form of business ownership that combines the benefits of a corporation and those of a proprietorship and a partnership, and similar to a corporation in the sense that a person and their business is considered two separate people. Okay? So 4 forms of business ownership: proprietorship, partnership, corporation, and LLC. Moving right along. So what makes these businesses different? 2 main things. One, the amount of people who are involved in the ownership structure, and 2, most important, the level of liability that comes with these types of ownership. And so liability then simply means the legal responsibility, and when a business owner, liability is the legal sense of responsibility. So when a business owner has unlimited liability, it simply means that the business owner is responsible for all debts and losses of the business. When you have limited liability, it's quite the opposite. It means that you, the owner, are not responsible for losses and debts, but the business is. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So in a proprietorship or sole proprietorship, you have unlimited liability, which means that you and your business are considered one person. And so let's say we are running a hair salon, and we are operating, it's a service business, we're operating as a sole proprietor, and we offer services to women and men. And let's just say we have an incident where someone was hurt while, experiencing services at the salon. That person wants to then take it to court and sue us for damages. Do they sue the person, the owner of the business, or do they sue the business? In this case, if the business ownership is set up as a proprietorship, they can actually sue. In suing the person, they are suing both the person and the business. So it's very important that we understand the difference between unlimited liability and limited liability. Because the business is structured as a proprietorship, they can actually sue that individual for personal assets. And so it becomes technical thinking of, okay, when I'm structuring my business, do I structure having unlimited liability or limited liability? And in next week's video, we'll talk more about limited liability. Some examples are of those ownership structures are LLC and corporations. And the difference is, in the same sense, let's say the same example with the hair salon, let's say it was an LLC, then that customer could sue the business but not the actual owner, because the business and the owner are separate and apart. They're two different, considered two different people. All right. It also makes a huge difference when you're filing taxes. As a sole proprietor, you file one single tax return, your household income in addition with whatever the business makes. As an LLC, it's a little different. You file your own personal income taxes, and then there's a separate income taxes done for the business. All right, so they're considered two different people. But in this chart, you're looking at proprietorship, type of liability, unlimited liability. Some advantages: proprietorships are usually easy to start, they're less expensive to start, and the owner retains all profits because they're operating as a one-man business. They don't have to share profits. And then disadvantages, in the like the example that I gave, the owner is responsible for all the debts of the business. In a partnership, I should have it written here, at least one partner usually have unlimited liability. They're usually also very easy to start, combined wealth, and more expertise is brought to the table because it's, two heads are better than one. And the tax structure is usually pretty simple. As far as disadvantages, profits have to be shared because it is a partnership. Disagreements can occur, and partnership may dissolve if one partner dies. All right, and that is where we'll stop for today. So the assignment that I'm going to be sending you over will allow you to just go back over some of these information and just dig a little deeper for some of these topics. So just to quickly run through, we discussed different types of businesses. We looked at extractors, manufacturers, wholesalers and retailers, and service businesses. We also looked or talked about the NAICS and what their role is in terms of business and industry structures. Types of customers, there are three types. You have business market, the consumer market, and government and institutions. You have 4 different forms of business ownership. There are about 3 more alternative ones that we'll look at. No, 2. But in this, today we talked about proprietorship, partnership, corporation, and LLCs. And we talked about liability. Unlimited liability, again, simply means that business owner is responsible for all the debts and losses of the business. And limited liability, they are not responsible for the debts and losses of the business. And proprietorship, advantages and disadvantages, and partnership, advantages and disadvantages. And this is where we will stop for today. So until next time, I will see you pretty soon, and I hope everybody's taking good care of themselves. And don't forget, stay home. All right, you guys.